Enola Holmes. Now, Enola Holmes is a telling of the little sister of Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes. It is a mystery. Millie Bobby Brown stars in the titular role, and you have some great people in it. You have Helena Bonham Carter plays the Holmes mother, and then you have Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes, which I thought was a really interesting choice. Millie Bobby Brown is terrific. She's a star. From she's growing up. She's maturing as an actor, and she's a wonderful performer. I think she's definitely a reason to see the movie. Good looking movie. It's a period piece. My biggest thing was Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes. It's trying to unravel a mystery. So the mother goes missing, and Enola is raised almost solely by her mother, and she disappears. And then it's the mystery of like finding the mother. And we go on this long adventure with Enola. She eventually meets a boy. Mycroft and Holmes, they're there, but they're kind of they're on the sidelines kind of thing. But it's interesting. I thought it was pretty well done. Some wacky stuff in it though. What was your impression of it?
I went into this really, really wanting to like it. Millie Bobby Brown is a bona fide star at this point. Obviously her work on Stranger Things is spectacular. She's got a very accomplished resume to this point, and she doesn't seem to be falling into the child star trappings that so many before her have. But I just couldn't get into it. I wanted to so badly, but the film has way too many young adult novel trappings in it. On a meta level, Arthur Conan Doyle's estate is suing Netflix over the film because they think Sherlock is too emotional in some scenes. And as much as I enjoy him as an actor, no one has ever accused Henry Cavill of being too emotional. It's just never happened. I think him cocking his fist in Mission Impossible is about as emotional as that guy gets. He's the perfect deadpan, but he does show more emotion than a typical interpretation of Sherlock Holmes would.
It's a different kind of emotion too, because he's sort of sentimental a little bit in it, which I think was written about in the later works of Conan Doyle.
And that's where the family's suing. The later works of Conan Doyle do give Sherlock more of an empathetic personality than he normally had in the original run. And apparently those stories are still under copyright, whereas the rest of Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain. So I am about as good a lawyer as Rudy Giuliani is, which is to say not at all. So I really can't touch it, but just on its serves, like you're accusing Henry Cavill of being too emotional. Yep, okay, let's just
Yeah. When I saw that casting, I was like, really? Because, well, for one thing, he's a huge hunk of beefcake, this guy. And he looks so weird in those period suits. It looks so out of place to me.
I would have bought it more if this was the Guy Ritchie version of Sherlock Holmes, where combat is more important than deductive reasoning, because that would be something more up Henry Cavill's alley as an actor. And again, this is not to discredit him in any way. He's a fine actor. He makes a good Superman, and I really did enjoy him in Mission Impossible. That, like, again, those fight scenes were just amazing, and the guy knows how to be in those kind of choreographed moments. So to have him be more subdued and yet still more emotional as Sherlock Holmes, probably a miscast here, but I'm not going to fault him for trying.
Yeah, and I thought, I think, like I said, she's very good. Helena Bonham Carter is very good.
For the 2 minutes she's in it, yeah.
But we also have to, like, putting this in perspective, though, we have to realize that, we're not the audience for this movie. This is the teenage girl version of Sherlock Holmes. We are not the intended audience. I think the attendant audience really liked it. I think it did very well with people, in and around that age. And it's like, when you were a teenager and you were reading those YA novels, or you were reading mystery stories, or maybe you started reading Sherlock Holmes, it captures the spirit of that. Technically, the only thing I thought was weird was the breaking of the fourth wall stuff.
Yeah, that got annoying really quickly, and I don't use that word lightly. Like, it's one thing to break the fourth wall in something that might be era appropriate, like a Deadpool, or even John Belushi winking at the camera in Animal House. It's like, it's one or two moments meant for comic effect. Here she's literally turning to a camera that would not exist in Victorian England and narrating the entire story, not just breaking the fourth wall, but breaking the scene as well. And it just doesn't work. It pulls you right out of the picture. It I I'm not the biggest fan of narration as a plot device either, but if the if those are the two options, take the narration, or given that this is a character who's a member of the Holmes family and likes to play word puzzles, well, have her write something down, narrate to that. It plays more like a Dear Diary moment, which I guess, again, is for the target audience, but for what you're trying to do, it's just out of place.
I felt like that was a generational thing too. Like they were trying to make a new Holmes, like a new thing for a new generation. And it's again like we were talking about, with Rebecca. Like, why are we going to make another like Sherlock Holmesy kind of story? Well, we got to put a different spin on it. In that case, like why not just make the whole thing modern? Like the narration's been used in period movies, but in general, it's like somebody writing in a diary, or it's the works of, or like an epistolary or something like that. It's not someone stopping and talking to the camera.
And it's not that we haven't already done this. I mean, we have the BBC Sherlock show, we have Elementary on CBS in this country. Like we've had modernized versions of Sherlock Holmes plenty of times. And that's why I kind of like, well, we really don't need a Holmes for the new generation because we've been fine with the Holmes we've had for 150 years. The young adult trappings here are kind of what bother me more than anything. And I know I'm not the audience for that, so take this with the requisite grains of salt that you need to. But if you're trying to have this movie where you basically say, hey, here's Sherlock Holmes' little sister, and she's smarter than Sherlock himself, well, then Sherlock would not derail his entire investigation because he met a cute boy. It's like, it's not, hey, let's solve the mystery. Oh, wait, here's someone who looks like they're from One Direction, and let me use a pocket knife to cut their hair so they look like someone else from One Direction. No, just no. This is more of a failing of the genre than anything else. I mean, this movie kind of reinforces it in the sense that you have Helena Bonham Carter, you have Henry Cable, you have Sam Claflin, who was Finnick Odair in the Hunger Games. It was like you have a lot of young adult film actors in this film to reinforce that idea. It's one thing to kind of take that angle. It's another thing to basically make it its whole different ball of wax, where you basically deprive the protagonist from having a real adventure. And again, like I started to say, this is sort of an issue with the genre as a whole. I mean, there's plenty of other examples. The one that immediately comes to mind is the Mulan remake that came out this year, which I'll admit I haven't seen, but I've seen enough. I've seen a bunch of clips and I've read a lot of reviews of it. When it comes to young adult films, especially those that have a strong female lead, apparently it's like a studio note or something that this strong female lead can have no flaws. She can't have anything wrong with her to learn from and get better. She has to already be pre-built as a certified badass. To take the Mulan point, the original Mulan, for all of its pluses and minuses, you have this awkward girl who's making quite frankly, a very stupid decision to save her father's life, and basically sacrificing her own in the process because she has no realistic chance of surviving this war. And then she learns how to become a fighter. She learns how to become a warrior, and then she pulls off some heroics. In the remake, she's already doing parkour off the walls at age 4. It's like there's no journey now. She's already the superhero. Same thing with Enola. You build up this mythos of her being smarter than Sherlock, with flashbacks of her doing jujitsu with her mother, to the point where, and this is, I guess, a spoiler, but really it's not if you know anything about the way these movies are made. Like, oh, she beats Sherlock to solving the mystery, except that she doesn't. She comes to the wrong conclusion, but gets made right by circumstance. Whereas Sherlock actually solves the real mystery a day later. So, like, what did we really learn here?
I kind of missed that part too. Like, I missed the ending. To me, was a little bit muddy as to exactly. But I think, to your point though, about what you're saying, is like, yeah, you can't be super awesome at 16. Like, it might have been more interesting to kind of see like the Sherlock Begins or like the Enola Holmes Begins version of this.
Here's a good example, and I guess this is generational, but here's a good example to compare this to: Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Okay, you have a central character in a teen movie who breaks the fourth wall and talks to directly to the audience the entire way through, but it makes sense because it's the 80s and there's the technology to exist for that to happen. But everything goes right for him in spite of himself. He is not that skilled of an individual. He just gets lucky over and over and over again. There are so many opportunities along the way for his grand scheme to blow up in his face. And it's down to the contrivances of the script and the characters to make it so that doesn't happen. Whereas with Enola Holmes, it really is just we're waiting for the next moment. Oh, the assassin somehow didn't die again. We don't care how he found her, but fight, fight, fight. He should have died. Somehow he lives and he'll be back at the end. You know, there's nothing, there's no real point where she's got a realistic chance of failing. She's always going to get there. It's just a matter of how and why and how much time do we waste along the way. This is kind of a bloated film. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes for something that would normally be like a half-hour pilot on Nickelodeon.